As we move into delivery, one thing that I want to spend some time talking about is good projection. And the way to sort of get at this is I want to talk about, we typically, when thinking about the human instrument, the speaking instrument, we think about activators, so your breath, so your chest, where you're breathing, also a little bit on your hips. So the activators, the vibrator, the vocal folds in the larynx, and then the upper vocal tract as resonators. We want good resonance when we speak. And so I'll talk about sort of the pharynx, the mouth, the nasal cavity. These are all areas where our voice gains some resonance. So first off, let's talk a little bit about the activators. Now each time we've talked a little bit about breathing and breath control. And really good projection is going to require really good breath control. So go ahead and tense up your stomach like I was about to punch you in the stomach and try taking a deep breath. You can't. You're tense down there. And the same thing if the pelvic floor. Imagine, so clench your buttocks. You need to go to the bathroom and you don't want to, and so you're tensing. So tense up clench your butt, and then try to take a deep breath. And you shouldn't be able to as well. So this entire area we want to remain loose. If we're going to take in good volume of air to really activate good projection, we need to remain loose. Because remember, you're trying to fill this cavity with air. So some exercises for this, just to be practicing, are, you can take a breath in and you're sort of modulating how you release it. So, ha 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 ho 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 ho, ha 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 ho 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 ho. So all these, by the way, all these exercises that I'm going to give you are stupid. And really make sure no one can see you. Unless, of course, you are broadcasting online, and make sure then everyone can see you. So that allows you to sort of check and make sure that you can take in that volume of air, but you're also controlling how it's released. You can do this as well with some words. So stop, go, fast, slow, stop, go, fast, slow. So once again, being able to take in that air, but also clip it. All right, so you're getting that out, but you're also stopping it. In terms of just volume of air and maintaining that, we did the whole blowing the candle thing a number of weeks back in the impromptu. Same thing, just to activate the larynx, is taking in a deep breath and then just maintaining a steady note. You get the idea. You can keep going on this. But it's a way of testing that breath control. If we're going to have good projection, we need good breath control. Because then, if we've got our activators taken care of, if we're taking in a good volume of air, we get to as we pass over the vocal folds, which the skin flaps that vibrate together and make sound. As we pass over the vocal folds, we want to have good resonance. Now, when you're thinking about resonance, think of a human being much more like a string instrument than a brass instrument. So I don't want you to get volume and projection like you're blowing on a trumpet. You're not blowing harder to get louder. Really what we want to do is activate the various resonance chambers that we have. We want greater power through manipulation of these resonance spaces. And so we've got a number of resonance chambers, and by which I mean cavities in our body. So I mean, you're mostly empty space. I don't mean that as a derogatory sense, but you got a big old hole in the middle of your chest where your lungs sit, and you got a lot of holes in your head. We got a lot of empty space, nasal cavity, mouth cavity, so on and so forth. And that's where our voice is gaining its richness, its sense of tone. Think about why a violin has a different sound than a cello. They've got different cavities, right? Smaller, bigger cavities for resonance to develop. So when we think about these cavities, we've got a resonance cavity in our chest. It's not really a good resonance chamber for speaking. It's on the wrong side of the vocal folds, right? Our air's coming up and out this way, not going down. So as much as possible, we want to avoid trying to rely on a chest voice, right? We don't really use too much of this in the sort of resonance that we want to manipulate. By the same token, we got another resonance chamber up here in the nasal cavity. Well, we know what this is, right? It's a nasal voice. So we don't want to really push it up there and get a nasal voice. I assume you don't, because that would be awful, and you would be punched regularly in speeches. So we don't really want that. What we want is this area here. the pharyngeal space, the pharynx. The pharynx is the space at the back of the throat above the larynx. So first we got to sort of isolate what this is and really think about how, when we're speaking, that pharynx is more open. And if you've ever taken singing lessons or vocal instruction, sometimes they'll call this open throat singing. Not Tuvan throat singing, but open throat singing. And so the way to feel this space, this pharynx, this pharyngeal space, is, so I imagine you trying not to mess yourself. So now imagine you're vomiting. This is fun. So imagine you're doing a dry heave. So just as much as you can, and do the sound too, because that makes it more fun. But that you can feel this being opened more. And also, we can talk about your sort of lifting the soft palate. So in the front of your mouth, you put your tongue up there. That's the hard palate, because it's hard. And you sort of slide your tongue back to the back of the throat, and you can feel where it gets soft. That's a soft palate. So we want to raise that soft palate and expand that pharyngeal space. And so that's going to give us more resonance. Okay, that's a difference between sort of a soft voice and a big voice, is really being able to activate that pharyngeal space. The other way you can sort of feel that pharyngeal space is just yawn. The sound helps too. But so that's what you're doing. Now, obviously, that's not how you're speaking. You're not doing that. But we want that area to be where most of our resonance is coming from, because then we can really scale up or down the volume with pretty small changes. So the difference between me speaking at this volume and me speaking at this volume is really quite small. One of the smallest things that's happening is I'm just pushing more air very deliberately across those vocal folds. There's not too much that's changed in terms of the manipulation of this pharyngeal space. It expands a little bit. Now, one thing you can hear is when you're speaking, activating that pharyngeal space a little bit more, probably your vocal tone's going to be a little bit lower. That's not the goal. The goal isn't to speak low, but it's an indicator of that pharyngeal space, because probably the larynx is lower, and so you've got a longer vocal tract, and so the voice will be a little bit lower. So that's not the goal, but that's an indication. But good projection is important. We've talked about that. But how you're getting projection, the last thing that I want to do is think about this pharyngeal space. So what are some exercises for this? Well, certainly you can sing a portion of your speech, but that's very low. You can do sirens. Do lots of those. Again, I said these are all stupid, and they should make you feel foolish. But what we really want to do is isolate and practice that pharyngeal space. And so you can hear it, you can feel it. And it feels like a wider area in the back of your throat, because that's in essence what's going on. You've opened up that space, and that allows for greater resonance between when you're activating the breath and when it's coming out to your listeners. So that's something to practice on. And as you're delivering your speeches, you're trying to engage this pharyngeal space so that you have got good projection, and it sounds as if your voice has more power.